As you can see, I am not in my normal surroundings right now, and that's because I have been attending VidCon this week. It's been a good time, I met a lot of people, but unfortunately I still have to make a video because these trips do not pay for themselves. But hey, that's not really that bad of a deal, and I have to thank ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video and paying for my vacation, business trip. Back to the subject at hand today, if you were on the internet around 7 years ago, there were not many people who were as well respected as Nye The Science Guy. He was most well known for having a children's TV show back in the 90s to teach people about science. And on top of that, by the 2010s, he was fighting against climate change deniers and religious fundamentalists. Fast forward just a few years and he is now constantly being accused of being a hack. So what changed in such a short period of time to make the perception of this man completely different? Well, this story begins in 1993 when his educational program began airing for kids across North America. Having been an employee at the Boeing company before getting into comedy, Bill had developed a knack for communicating scientific concepts to children in a fun, entertaining way, which the show replicated.
Hear that? Insects are everywhere. Everywhere! There's more insects in the world than there are other animals. There's so many insects that if this lab were a patch of forest, there'd be enough insects living on that small piece of land to knock this door right over.
As he played this goofy character throughout the 1990s, a lot of kids grew up wanting to get into science because of him. And by the time they were adults, they were on places such as Reddit singing his praises, most specifically R-atheism. Some may not remember, but atheism was a default subreddit in the early days of the site, and they loved Bill Nye because he was always arguing with Christians and the right wing about global warming and evolution. This guy that they had grown up watching was now defending their worldview in debates with people like Ken Ham. By 2013, Bill Nye seemed to be unstoppable on the internet, with a legion of fans defending his honor, and not many people detracting his message. Well, at least not on Reddit or YouTube. That all changed, however, after a while. I think his demise begins with the downfall of the atheist community on the internet. Long gone are the days where they were taking over websites such as Reddit. I'm not saying all these people all of a sudden started just believing in God, but rather they stopped having groups specifically just to talk about that one subject. Sure, they still exist, but they're not as big as they once were. My hypothesis for this change-up would be the building mockery of these atheism-themed groups. The stereotype of fedora-wearing neckbeard atheists getting friend-zoned really started to take off based off of some really cringy posts on Reddit, and people just didn't want to be associated with this community anymore. On top of that, Reddit became more mainstream. The other thing you have to take into account is that Bill Nye's show aired from 1993 to around 1999. So anyone who grew up past that point really has no recollection of Bill Nye, nor do they understand why they should respect him. People of my age group and under had no nostalgic attachment to Bill Nye The Science Guy or his kids show. He was purely a late 90s kids phenomenon who was ending his series while people like me were in diapers. Because of this, when younger millennials and zoomers started using the internet, they didn't have the same rose-tinted glasses on when looking at Bill's actions. And this is when people became skeptical. One of the main things people started to find out was that he was not really a scientist, but rather a science communicator. He only had a bachelor's degree in engineering and had never been published in a scientific journal before. This led many to wonder why they were even being lectured about science from him. I can't speak for others with this next point, but I also always noticed that Bill Nye seemed to get into very unproductive arguments. He'd get into debates with people like Ken Ham, but at the end of the day it never really went anywhere. His fans thought he owned him, and likewise for the other group. Because of this, I felt that all his actions seemed to be futile in a way. It wouldn't be until 2017 when even some of his most ardent supporters started to turn, when Bill decided to make a comeback to television with a brand new show called Bill Nye Saves the World. The title seemed a bit presumptuous, but with the backing of Netflix, it could have been good. I remember seeing a lot of people that were really excited for the show. They remembered watching the original when they grew up and now wanted to share this next generation with their kids to teach them about science. What they ended up getting, however, was a show that talked about cultural appropriation, if we should implement a China-style one-child policy in the United States, and encourage people to have gay orgies represented with ice cream cones. It was really baffling. Not only was the show not family-friendly, but also it was very controversial. For the decade prior, Bill only went after people such as climate change deniers. You know, things that are generally popular stances to have on the internet. But in this new show, he goes into much more polarizing subject matter such as social justice. This split his audience in half, and the most infamous of these is when he teaches about gender being on a spectrum.
And they're finding human sexuality is on a spectrum. I used to think there were just two settings, male and female. But it's actually a lot sexier than that.
No matter if you feel that gender's on a spectrum or if there's only men and women, you cannot deny that this is a hotly debated issue. So the idea that a comedian/engineer is going to come in and set the record straight on what the truth is just didn't seem right. If that was the end of it, a lot of people probably wouldn't have noticed. But then he created a song called My Sex Junk, which is really bad.
My vagina has its own voice, 'cause my sex junk is so much more than either.
This song has the absolute worst like to dislike ratio I have ever seen on a YouTube video in my 10 years of making vids. And many of those same atheists who were supporting Bill Nye back in the day were now apologizing in the comments section to Christians that they had bashed once, saying that this video had helped them find Jesus. Whether you believe these are troll comments is up to you to decide. I think it's clear that Bill Nye is not as liked as he once was, but the reason I wanted to make this video today is I find it funny that a man who has argued with Christians for the past 2 decades is now helping people find Jesus. Weird how that works. Hey everybody, before I finish this video today, I just want to give a very big thank you to my very appropriate sponsor, ExpressVPN. When I'm traveling like this, I spend a lot of time in public Wi-Fi networks, such as Airbnbs, hotels, convention centers, and airplanes. Because of that, it's very important to have a VPN to protect my identity as well as all my information. By using ExpressVPN, you are protected when out in public. No one will be able to see your internet messages, passwords, or other personal information. The app's available for Windows, iOS, Android, Mac, Linux, routers, and even more. On top of this, you could hide your location by being placed in 94 different countries, giving you plenty of options to choose from. They are also the market-leading VPN rated #1 by TechRadar. On top of this, it's less than $7 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Take back your internet privacy today and find out how to get 3 months free by clicking the link in the description box, expressvpn.com/whathappened. Take back your internet privacy today with ExpressVPN.